Hello there, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and I'm back with another episode of Shadow the Demon Lord Talk. And this is episode 76. Spirit of 76 is what we'll be talking about today. No, actually, we'll be talking about Demon Lords, or Demon Princes. And that's why I've got a picture of Orcas up here, one of the first ones that I was introduced to as a young impressionable youth. And so we'll be getting more into Demon Princes here in a bit, but first I wanted to talk about a few other things. I subscribe to quite a few other RPG related channels, and there was one that I came across here recently, and I don't normally pimp other channels, but I did want to go ahead and mention this one because his last video was actually very interesting and not even directly related to RPGs, but this channel right here, RPG Elite, and I'm afraid I don't know the name of the fellow that that does the video, but or the channel, but it's a pretty interesting channel, obviously related to role-playing games, although not he doesn't spend a whole lot of time, if any, on the main role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons, which I find rather interesting. But he does focus on other games, like Gamma World has been a focus of several of his recent videos. So anyway, I wanted to mention this page because his last video, 5 Ways to Help RPG Elite in 2022, is actually an interesting video that applies to my channel, because he actually goes into a fairly in-depth overview of YouTube and how things are unlocked when certain thresholds are met, as far as subscribers, as far as views go, and things like that. This was very enlightening for me, and I've read some of his reviews and his viewers as well. So I wanted to point this out. 5 Ways to Help RPG Elite is also 5 Ways to Help DM Nell's channel. Check it out. It's an interesting view. It's not very long. It's only 12 minutes. So I highly recommend it. And also check out some of his other videos and subscribe to his channel because he's got some interesting ideas and interesting things on here. All right, so that was one thing I wanted to cover. Another thing I wanted to mention is how to find my tokens for Shadow the Demon Lord in Roll20. So I've mentioned that I produce token sets for, I say for Shadow the Demon Lord. They were inspired mostly by Shadow the Demon Lord by my games, needing Shadow the Demon Lord monsters that I couldn't find represented in any other token sets in anywhere I looked, basically. So I started creating my own, and I put them out on Roll20 because Roll20 is like the biggest producer of virtual tabletop assets that I've found anyway. I suppose I could put them on Drive-Thru RPG. Maybe I will one of these days. But anyway, right now you can find them on Roll20. And basically the best way to find them on Roll20 is to go to the marketplace, do a search for DM Nell, and you'll get 7 results because I have 7 sets. All 7 of my sets are out here. And you can see there are plenty of Shadow the Demon Lord inspired monsters, and a few D&D inspired monsters as well, that are featured. So I wanted to point that out in case anybody is needing virtual tabletop tokens for their game. You can find them out here at Roll20 in the marketplace. Just type in DM Nell in the search in the marketplace. All right, so now that business is out of the way, one last order of business, and this is related to the RPG Elite shout out that I gave, and that is how to ensure that my channel is as visible as possible for people that are searching for Shadow the Demon Lord content. Now, if you do a search for Shadow the Demon Lord, you'll get a lot of stuff in YouTube, mostly actual plays and reviews of the game, and interviews with Rob Schwab. All of those are great videos, and I do recommend watching all of them, but none of them actually go into any type of depth of, you know, the game itself, the game mechanics, the lore of the game, the world. I'm afraid I'm the only person that does that. And I'm sorry for that because I kind of suck at it. But, you know, the reason I started doing this channel was because I didn't feel like Shadow of the Demon Lord was getting the attention it needed. And I think that's mostly because people don't even realize that the game exists. There's such a glut of games out there these days, thanks to 5e, that it's really difficult to find other games if you're, you know, looking for different types of games. It's kind of difficult to find them unless you're specifically looking for a thing. Now, of course, if you type in Shadow of the Demon Lord in YouTube, yeah, you're going to find a lot of stuff. So, but people who are not familiar with Shadow of the Demon Lord don't know to type that in, and so maybe they're looking for an alternative to D&D. Maybe they're tired of 5th edition and they want something, you know, fantasy related, but maybe something a little darker, something a little bit more adult themed. You know, Shadow of the Demon Lord may be their jam, but they don't know it exists. So that's why I do my videos. That's why I try to get as many people subscribed as possible and as many views as possible, so that the people that are looking for this type of content can find it. So that's why I ask you to subscribe. And what subscription does basically is it not only helps my channel grow and opens up new frontiers for my channel, enabling me to do different things with the channel, but it also you know, is more likely to be found by people that are searching for this type of content. So anyway, that's me pimping subscriptions for my channel. Doesn't cost anything. Just ask that you hit the subscribe button and you know, help me grow the community. And that's pretty much my my biggest focus here. All right, having said that, let's talk about the actual reason for this video, the topic of this video, Demon Princes. So I've got, as I mentioned, I got Orcas up here, or Dorcas, or whatever you want to call him, but Orcas is one of the first Demon Princes that I was introduced to as a youth, and I forget what book he was in. I want to say it was in Fiend Folio, but he could have been in the first Monster Manual. I'm not really sure. It could have been in Monster Manual too. I don't know. But I was introduced to role-playing games with the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons hardcover books, and you know, like the one I got up here, the Player's Handbook. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, that guy right there, right next to the statue that's represented on. Yeah. Anyway, that's my first edition of Dungeons and Dragons, is the Advanced D&D, and I spent a lot of time as a youth just flipping through the monster manuals and, you know, the various monster manuals and Fiend Folios and such, and just absorbing all of the ideas and the creative things that went into those. And the Demon Princes always sparked a certain amount of interest, and I think it's because they represent some of the more powerful elements of the game. And I always liked the idea that for role-playing games in general, but especially for Dungeons & Dragons, that you start off as a peon, and as you play more, you get to the point where you can take on godlike beings. And that had never been something that was available in those days. And I'm talking late 70s, early 80s. And you know, the games that we had, like back then, board games for the most part, were one and done. You play a game, it's over. You know, there was no advancement. There was no character growth or development. There was no gaining power. And the concept of being able to take a character, grow in power, and be able to take on gods was really, you know, it just hit me in the core of my creative core. And when I got the deities and demigods, that just blew my mind. But that's a topic for another day. So anyway, Orcas was always one of my favorites, even though the drawing here looks like it was done by somebody's kindergartner. And, you know, no affront to the artist, because I know that their art budget was pretty tight back then. And this may actually have been somebody's kindergartner that drew this, or it may have been one of the actual designers that didn't know how to draw and just kind of sketched out to the best of their ability. But anyway, this was their depiction of Orcas at the time, and of course, Orcas has been depicted many different ways since then. And so he has always been one of my favorite demon lords, simply because he's the demon prince of undead. Now, I'm not really sure why he's the demon prince of undead. I mean, he doesn't look undead. He's got this skull-topped scepter. I think they just kind of threw that on him, as to give him some kind of just make him stand apart from the other demon lords. Maybe, I don't know if actual Orcas lore has him commanding legions of undead or whatever, but he doesn't. Looking at it, he doesn't really strike me as an undead. Prince of Undead. And actually, if you read some of the D&D lore, he didn't even like being the Prince of Undead. He just is. Excuse me. Bless me. Okay, so yeah, I mean, you've got Orcas here, and he's one of the demon princes. You also have Demigorgon and some of the others that have come out. And Demigorgon has been Demigorgon, whatever. Demigorgon has been recently made more popular due to the Stranger Things franchise that popularized a creature that isn't Demigorgon, but the kids called him Demigorgon. I don't know why they called him Demigorgon, because Demigorgon has two heads and this thing only has one head. But whatever. At least you got D&D on the small screen, right? So you got the Stranger Things kids popularizing Demigorgon, so we got that going. And then, of course, 5th edition produced an adventure that has all the demon lords in it, or demon princes in it. So, what does this have to do with Shadow the Demon Lord? Well, I wanted to do a talk about the demon princes in Shadow the Demon Lord. So, the demon princes are presented in The Hunger in the Void, my favorite supplement, as I've mentioned many times. And if you go to towards the end of the book is where the demon princes are presented. On page 64, you get all of 2 pages. That's not a whole lot of love, and I really am sad that Schwab didn't devote more space to demon princes, because, like I said, these monsters really, and I know if it did for me, it did for others, they really spark a certain sense of fascination. And so I think that spending a little bit more time and space on the more powerful elements of the game is a worthy pursuit, even though the chances that people will actually get to a level high enough to play against these things is questionable. But anyway, back to Demon Princes and Shadow of the Demon Lord. This supplement is where you will find details on the Demon Princes, and this particular tome talks about 3 demon princes that are known. And the first one is the Destroyer of Worlds. The second one is the Failure in Flesh, and the third one is the Lord of Undeath. Orcish, right? No. So, but first, before we go into the individual demon lords, let's talk about what demon lords are in Shadow of the Demon Lord. So, demon lords are demons. They and gained the demon lord's anger, frustration, and desire to destroy and reclaim his property. And so demons are a destructive force in this game, and demon princes are just the demons that have been around for a long time and that have grown in power to the point where they are able to think for themselves for the most part. They're not solely driven by their destructive impulses, although they are still pretty fucking destructive. But they may also have other other motives, other interests, rather than just pure destruction. They may want to fuck with the world a little bit before they actually destroy it. Or they may want to foster elements of destruction within the world in order to have the world facilitate its own self-destruction, which, is got to be pretty funny from a demon's perspective. It's one thing going in and destroying things yourself. It's another thing to watch and influence the things in the world destroy themselves. So, that's probably a pretty good source of comedy for them. That's like their version of Dave Chappelle, going in and, just throwing in little bits of anger and frustration into the world, and then watching the pitiful mortals out there soak it up and tear themselves up. So anyway, that's what demon princes are. They are hyper powerful demons that have agendas. And so some of the agendas are pretty straightforward. Destroy the world. And that is what the Destroyer of World does. When he is ready to make an entrance into the world, he does it with the sole purpose of destroying pretty much everything. So, but again, I jump ahead of myself. Let's talk about just demon lords in general. So demon lords in general have a stat block that's presented here, which can be modified to be more specific to the demon lord that you are presenting. But this is a pretty damn good stat block just as is, and could represent any demon lord as is. And if you want to add some more stuff to it to make it more flavorful to the demon prince, more power to you. But really, I mean, you already got almost 2 columns. Well, you got basically a column and a half, I think. Well, not really. You got about a little more than a column of stat block here. And, they've got a lot of stuff. So starting with their difficulty, they are difficulty 1000, which makes them among the most powerful opponents in the game. I haven't seen anything higher than difficulty 1000. I'm not sure that Schwab is going to produce anything higher than difficulty 1000. He may, if he ever puts out something for the Ashrakal, the big baddie of his lore. If the Witch King is ever produced as a stat block, he may choose to use him as the template for something higher than difficulty 1000. But at this point, haven't seen it. And demon princes represent, some of the more powerful monsters. There are other difficulty 1000 opponents out there, and I'll cover those in a different video someday. But yeah, demon princes are up there. So difficulty 1000 is pretty damn powerful. They are size 10 plus, so they are enormous monsters. And 10 plus means you can make them size 10, or you can make them size 736 if you want. I mean, these demons have no upper limit to how big you can make them. And then you just go into the stat block, which I'm not going to read through all of it. We're just going to hit the highlights, but they're maxed out. Their stat blocks are maxed out. All their ability scores are 20. They're immune to a lot of stuff. Not everything, but they're immune to a lot of stuff. They are a greater horror, meaning that not only are they horrifying, but they are more horrifying than horrifying. Creatures make challenge rolls to resist the demon prince's horrifying trait with 3 banes, and on a failure gain 2d6 extra insanity. A creature that gains insanity from seeing a demon prince also becomes dazed as long as it is frightened. If gained insanity would cause a creature to go mad, the creature becomes possessed by a large demon. So that's the greater horror aspect of the demon prince. They also have ruinous arrival, which I love. I love this. Basically, when a demon prince enters the world, and each prince has its own way of entering the world, and I would encourage you to make it a part of your campaign. If you're going to use a demon prince, and this is where I failed, because I used the Destroyer of Worlds, but I failed to use the Ruinous Arrival, and in my defense, this was my first campaign that I brought the Destroyer of Worlds in, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and so I didn't do the Ruinous Arrival. In hindsight, it would have been fabulous, and I should have done it. So if I use another Demon Prince, which I will, I will definitely take advantage of the Ravenous Arrival. So when a Demon Prince enters the world, everything within 3d6 miles of the spot where it arrives takes 3d6 plus 10 damage. So that's going to kill pretty much everything that is not an adventurer. A creature can make a strength challenge roll with 3 Banes and take half damage on a success, which is still going to kill pretty much everything other than adventurers. In addition, each creature within range gains 2d6 insanity and must then get a success on a will challenge roll or gain 2d6 extra insanity. So again, the things that it doesn't kill is going to drive insane. So Ravenous Arrival really is aptly named because it ruins the day of everything within 3d6 plus 10 miles. So we're talking, 3d6, what the hell was it? 3d6 miles. So anything within a minimum of 3 miles and a maximum of 18 miles from where this thing arrives, their day is ruined. Their life is ruined. Greater spell defense, so it's harder to affect the Demon Lord with Demon Prince with spells, which makes me sad because I like to run spellcasters, and it's already hard to hurt demons with spells. But it's even harder now. And then demonic shadows. Basically the demon darkens 1 mile of area around it, making it harder to hit him. And so that is those are just traits. Then the attack options are where you have, I think, opportunity to expand the stat block to personalize it to the Demon Lord, because all it shows is natural weapon. Plus 10 with 3 boons, 8d6 damage. It's pretty simple, pretty generic. I would go a little bit further with that when you're delving into the individual Demon Lords. Then you have the special attacks. You got Frenzied Attack, which allows the Demon Prince to attack 2 different targets with a Bane. You have Demonic Roar. Demon Prince can use an action or triggered action on its turn to loose a roar. Each creature that is not a demon within 1 mile of the demon and can hear the roar must make a will challenge roll with 1 Bane on a failure. The creature becomes frightened for an hour. On a success, it becomes immune. So that's the Demonic Roar it can do as a special attack. And then you've got the special actions. You got Demonic Summons. Not only does the Demon Prince is the Demon Prince a powerful entity unto itself, but it summons other demons. 1 large demon, 3 medium demons, or 6 smaller demons can be summoned. Once the Demon Prince uses the demonic summons, it must wait an hour before it can use it again. As with other demons, it has void steps, so it may appear here and then it can go over there through teleportation by stepping through the void. And then Swift Spell, it can use a triggered action on its turn to cast a spell, which is great. Not only does it smash you with its natural weapon for 86 damage, but then it can also cast a spell. And here's what magic has. Here's the magic that it has in its arsenal by default, which again you can customize to your Demon Prince. It has a power of 8, so it can cast up to rank 8 spells. So pull out your occult philosophy, boys and girls, because your Demon Princes are going to be using some of those rank 8 spells. Demonology, of course, is one of the traditions that it has access to. The Forbidden Tradition, of course, and Telekinesis. So those are just the 3 that the stat block calls out, and of course you will customize that for your specific Demon Prince. And then the end of the round, Call of the Demon Lord is one of the features here. Each creature that is not a demon and is within long range of the Demon Prince must get a success on a strength challenge roll with 3 Banes or be moved 3d6 yards towards the Demon Prince. If an affected creature was flying, it falls. Come to me so I can crush you, right? All right, Epic Recovery. Demon Prince removes 1 affliction from itself, so you're not going to be stun locking the Demon Prince. And then Epic Adversary. Roll 1d3 plus 1 to determine how many actions. So the Demon Prince will have a minimum of 2 actions per round and a maximum of 4 actions per round. So the round that they have 4 actions is going to be a very, very bad round for the characters. All right, so that's the stat block, and it is a pretty potent stat block. I'm not sure that any level 10 group is going to be able to defeat a Demon Prince. I actually, with my when I introduced the Destroyer of Worlds, I gave my players a MacGuffin that would allow them to destroy the Demon Prince, and that is the Sword of Unmaking. So that's how they were able to defeat the Destroyer of Worlds. But if I hadn't have given that to them, there's no way they would have defeated this monster. No way. So yeah, if you want to challenge, if your party thinks they're tough and you want to challenge them, throw a Demon Prince at them. It will ruin their day. All right, so let's talk about notable Demon Princes. So there are many Demon Princes adrift in the void. There's only 3 listed here, and we'll talk about some others that you could potentially create. But the 3 that are listed here are the Destroyer of Worlds, Failure in Flesh, and the Lord of Undeath. So the Destroyer of Worlds is pretty straightforward. It enters the world from the heavens as a falling star. When it lands, flames rush out from it in all directions, out to the extent of the Ruinous Arrival trait. Everything in the area takes 50 damage instead of the normal 3d6 plus 10 from the flames and catches fire. For as long as the demon remains in the world, the ground within 1 mile of it heaves and shakes as if affected by an earthquake. The surface counts as difficult terrain. At the end of each round, everything in contact with the ground in the area takes 2d6 damage. A creature can make an agility challenge roll, blah, blah, blah. The Destroyer of Worlds looks like a 30-foot tall, corpulent human of indeterminate gender. A single baleful eye bulges from the center of its face, just above a great slack maw. As it wanders, rivers of excrement fall from its cavernous anus, painting the world black with the remnants of whatever it devours. All right, so I believe this is supposed to be the Destroyer of Worlds, but I'm a little disappointed in this monster. I mean, this is a pretty horrific looking monster, but to me, that doesn't look like a Destroyer of Worlds to me. I don't know what it is about it. It just doesn't strike me as a Destroyer of Worlds. It could be a Demon Prince for sure. But, yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. So, I probably wouldn't use this as my Destroyer of Worlds if I were to use a token in a virtual tabletop or a figure on the actual tabletop. I would probably use something a little bit more intimidating. So, but anyway, Destroyer of Worlds, definitely a force to be reckoned with. So, we move on from that one to the Failure in Flesh. So the Failure in Flesh bubbles up from cracks in the ground, forming a lake of amber slime from which it extrudes claws to tear, teeth to bite, and eyes to see. When the Failure in Flesh enters the world, each living creature within range of its Ruinous Arrival trait must get a success on a strength challenge roll with 1 bane or become diseased. Creature diseased by the Failure in Flesh begins to rot. So it goes on to describe that. And so the Failure in Flesh basically is a disease-ridden, rot-inducing monster. And then you've got the Lord of Undeath, a dreadful being from the depths of the void. The Lord of Undeath eclipses the moon when it appears and descends to the world's surface as a writhing clot of darkness that turns into a towering humanoid skeleton. Raven wings extend out from its back, and robes made from the animated skins of dead humans twitch on its body. Upon entering the world, the Lord of Death seals the gates of the underworld so that souls of the dead remain trapped in the world, unable to find oblivion of the afterlife. Whenever a living creature dies within 8 miles of the Lord of Undeath, that creature stands up and becomes a zombie 26 minutes later. So what I would use, I think, the Lord of Undeath with the Restless Dead shadow, have the Lord of Undeath appear at the beginning of the campaign rather than at the end. Have the gates of the underworld sealed. Maybe even have the Lord of Undeath go into the underworld and kill Father Death or eat him or whatever. and seal the underworld, gates of the underworld, and then the rest of the campaign, the characters are trying to find a way to to get rid of the Lord of Undeath. So those are the three demon princes that are presented. These are great ideas, but they don't represent, I think, all the ways a demon prince can be created. In fact, it would be very easy to come up with some ideas, and I came up with a few over here. Out of some of them were inspired by the lore of the game itself. So you have let me back up here. So the Destroyer of Worlds can be the herald of the can be used in conjunction with the Herald of the Demon Lord, or perhaps even the Demonic Incursion shadows. The Failure in Flesh, I think, would work well with the Pandemic shadow. And then, of course, the Lord of Undeath would work great with the Restless Dead shadow. So let's talk about the some new demon princes. I think this is an opportunity for the community creators to produce a product with new demon princes. And a couple that I would recommend just come from the this book itself, Hunger in the Void. One of them would be the Skull King. Now, the Skull King is who I think Orcas would be. I think the Skull King is a destructive force, but not something that commands undead, rather than something that just revels in the act of killing. So I think Orcas, the image of Orcas would be a better suit for the Skull King than the Lord of Undeath, because Lord of Undeath is basically described as a humanoid skeleton figure with robes of animated flesh. So if you have the Orcas miniature, which I happen to have, I actually have a couple. All right, so this was produced in the 4th edition days, and this is the old model, the 4th edition version of Orcas, and I love this model. It is an amazing sculpt and terrifying. If I were to put this on the table, my players would definitely have a case of hateful defecation striking them. This is an old metal miniature that I picked up. I think it's from the Reaper line, but I'm not positive about that. But this is also Orcas. It's supposed to be Orcas. Of course, it wasn't named Orcas in the line, but that is modeled more off of this thing than this 4th edition version. Even though the 4th edition version is cool, this is probably more in line with the old school Orcas. Now, here's the difference though. Yeah, which one are you going to put on the table? This one, I'm afraid. However, this one does have a place. This could be either a statue that animates and causes problems for your characters, or it can be an aspect of Orcas that appears earlier in the campaign. Now, you're saying, Orcas, that's D&D. Yeah, it's D&D, but there's nothing to say that Orcas can't be a demon prince in Shadow of the Demon Lord. Why not? It's your game. Bring Orcas into fucking Shadow of the Demon Lord if you want to, man. It's your game. I would. I might. Why not? Orcas is a badass, so the Skull King, I think, would be a good fit for Orcas. And you can read about the Skull King in the it's in the cult section of this book, Hunger in the Void. And let's see what page it's on. It's in here somewhere. All right. Reavers of the Skull King. So he talks about the Skull King a little bit. Doesn't go into a whole lot of detail, but at any rate, Skull King, yeah, that's Orcas. In my estimation, it's Orcas. All right, so the next one I would recommend as a demon prince would be the Glistening Prince. So the Glistening Prince is also a topic of one of the cults. And so I'm not sure it's really described what the Glistening Prince looks like. I can't recall a description in here, so you may have some flexibility to make the demon, this demon prince, kind of customize it. What I envision it looking like is the demon prince. Oh shoot, I forget his name. Grazit. That's the black-skinned demon prince that was a devil in D&D lore. He was a devil, but he became a demon prince, and so he's got the wavy black sword. He's supposed to be very handsome, so that's kind of what I envision the Glistening Prince to be. So if I were to use the Glistening Prince, that's probably the image that I would use. All right, so then I started thinking of trying to come up with some original ideas for demon princes, and here's a few I came up with. Now I haven't fleshed any of these out yet, but these are just some ideas to spark some potential adventures and campaigns from. So the Ravenous Swarm, and this was kind of modeled after the Worm That Walks. Now the Worm That Walks is featured in one of my favorite D&D books that I've talked about before, Elder Evils, and it is Caius. But again, I think Caius is really a bad representation for a great monster. Caius is a colony of green worms, but it represents, again, a lord of undead, and I don't like that because it's worms. What do worms have? I mean, other than eating undead, what do worms have in common? I mean, worms are alive, so I don't get the connection between Caius and undead. I get why they're presented as undead. I mean, the green worms animate a corpse, making it undead. I get that. But it's not what I consider an undead creature. I consider an undead creature something animated by a malevolent anti-life force. And I don't think that, green worms represents that well. So I would instead use the Ravenous Swarm, or the Worm That Walks, in an infestation shadow campaign. So infestation is the shadow event where all the vermin of the world start rebelling against the populations of the world. So you've got insects, you got rats, you got anything that's considered vermin. They start causing problems, and so a manifestation of these vermin could be not only worms, but it could be all forms of bugs, snakes, just all rats. All of these things conglomerate into a being that is similar to the Worm That Walks, has tattered robes to keep a humanoid form. But that's what I would use for that. So the Ravenous Swarm is one idea. Of the Void Given form. So this to me is a humanoid-shaped demon prince that is actually just a hole in the universe. It is a literal portal, walking, breathing portal to the void. And anything it comes into contact with is sucked into the void. And so the more it eats, the bigger it grows. And it is wanting to grow big enough so that the demon lord can enter the world through it. I love that idea. So the Void Given form is one I am actually going to come up with for one of my campaigns. Princes of Madness. This is what I envision Demigorgon being. So Demigorgon in D&D kind of has the madness trait associated with it because its two heads have individual personalities, and they're constantly at odds with each other, so they plot against each other, and they foster madness in their followers and their cults. So I would use Demigorgon with the Infectious Madness shadow event as the Prince of Madness, or the Princes of Madness, because there's two of them. I also have a Demigorgon model. Oh, and since I'm showing off my my models here, this is what I would use for the Failure in Flesh. This is another D&D demon prince. I call him Jubilex, but I think it's pronounced Weebilex. Weeblex, I mean. But anyway, I've mispronounced it since I was a kid, and I'm too old to change now. So this is Jubilex to me. And so he's the Demon Prince of Oozes. So that's what I would use as the Failure in Flesh. And then, of course, here is Demigorgon. This is I want to say this is a Gale Force 9 model. And it is not as big as Orcas, I don't think. Maybe it is. Yeah, it is. So these two guys, they're pretty comparable. But this is what I would use as the Princes of Madness. So Demigorgon, there you go, Princes of Madness. And then you have the last idea that I have for this episode is the Great Devourer. So, of course, this one is inspired by Galactus. Now, you don't necessarily want to bring Galactus into your campaign, although why not? You can. What is Galactus but a cosmic entity that goes world to world and eats it using strange cosmic technology? There's space for that in Shadow of the Demon Lord. Just look at the Reen, or look at the supplements like what's it? The something of the stars. Anyway, there's a supplement talking about the cosmology or the solar system and of the Shadow of the Demon Lord. But anyway, Path of the Stars, something like that. Anyway, so the Great Devourer could be a Galactus type of entity. It could be more demonic looking if you want it. If you want to make it a demon, make it a demon. If you want to make it just a demonic entity in the shape of a technology based humanoid, then just use Galactus. Do I have a Galactus model? I do indeed have a Galactus model. He's kind of dorky looking. Got him many years ago. Many years ago. Not even sure what toy line he's from, but yeah, if I wanted to, I could throw this down onto the table and say, this is starting to devour your world. It has this enormous technology that it is building, and you have the entire campaign to find a way to stop him. So there you go. The Great Devourer would be Galactus or something like that. You could even make it Pac-Man if you want to be goofy about it. Just make it an enormous yellow thing that just goes around the universe, devouring world, literally just kind of chomping on worlds. But that's kind of stupid. But if you want to make it a silly campaign, that'd be a good way to have a silly boss that is still pretty threatening. So anyway, that's all I got for Demon Princes. I've been wanting to talk about Demon Princes for a while because, again, they represent some of the more interesting monsters and powerful monsters of the game. So there you have it, a bunch of ideas thrown at you. Make of them what you will, and just give your players hell, or not hell, but give them the void. All right, so that's all I got for today. Appreciate your views. Appreciate you watching. So this is, what is today? Friday. So have a great weekend, and I will come at you next week with another Shadow of the Demon Lord talk. Until then, hail the Demon Lord. How do I stop this damn video?